Good evening.
Hello, all.
Recording in progress.
Sonia, you're on
Yes.
twice.
Oh,
Did you try to log in another time?
I couldn't get the volume on my laptop, so I turned it on my cell phone so I could hear.
Okay, I'm gonna remove the second one.
Okay.
Remove. There we go.
If one thing doesn't work, I try the next.
Alexa, stop, whatever.
Looks like we've got a quorum already. So I'm going to go ahead and welcome everybody and call this regular meeting of the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee on June 16th, 2021, calling it to order. Maureen, could you please call roll?
Sure. Chair Bowden? Am I still on mute now? Member Dickerson,
Here.
Vice Chair Green. Member Frangipane. Member Johnson,
Here.
Member Strom,
Present.
Member Watson,
Present.
so you do have a quorum. So far, it's just Member Frangipane that is not present.
Got it.
I'm present. I didn't say. Sorry, I probably missed it when you called me.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Before we get started, I wanted to do two things. Number one, we have a couple of changes to our committee. Christopher resigned and Robert, as our alternative, has stepped in to become a full member as of July. Or is it immediate? Maureen?
I think it's as of July. I
Okay,
don't know, but I'm pretty sure it's as of July 1st, but
okay.
he's an alternate member, so he can vote.
Yeah, since Christopher's not here. Got it. Okay, thank
Right.
you. And then we also have a new member, which actually makes us full again. Her name is Tara. Her first meeting will be in the July meeting. I believe she will be joining us at some point tonight. If she does, I'll just welcome her, but I'll wait until our July meeting to introduce her. Second thing is I have to leave for the airport. I thought it was going to be 15 minutes at 7:45, but the flight is early, so I need to call this meeting to a close at 7:30. However, if we are in the midst of something, Carson has agreed to continue on so that we could finish whatever we were discussing. Okay. Okay. So item number 2 on the agenda is consideration of the minutes from our previous meeting in May. Would someone please move to approve those minutes?
I move, and Maureen has her hand up.
Who moved? Member Johnson?
Monica did, yeah, thank you.
Go ahead, you can continue with this and I can go on in a minute.
Okay.
Second.
Carson seconded. Are there any corrections or discussions? All right. So we will go ahead and vote by a show of hands the approval of the minutes as stated. Those voting aye, please raise your hand. Robert, we can't see you. There we go. That's unanimous. Thank you all very much. The minutes are approved. Second on the agenda is our public forum. Maureen, do we have any attendees?
We do not.
Okay. And then you had your hand raised.
I do. I just wanted to bring up that as I've spoken with you, I will be on vacation July 2nd, basically, to the 10th. And if you guys decide to change your meeting to July 14th, either we have to have the agenda posted by July 1st, or I'm going to have to find somebody else to do it. But if you decide to keep your meeting on July 21st, then that doesn't pose any problem at all.
Okay, and I have a request to move our July meeting to the 7th of July, which I'm fine with. And I will get everything done in advance of you leaving on vacation July 2nd, did you say?
Yes.
I can get everything done before you leave, but that means somebody else will have to do minutes for us. Is there a replacement?
I have no, whoops, sorry. Oh, I'm not on mute. I have no replacement. I have no backup. So I guess I can try to ask somebody in the clerk's office if they'll go ahead and do the minutes, or when I get back, I can listen to the recording and do the minutes.
Okay. What do you normally do? I mean, what's protocol? What's the most common thing?
Well, normally you'd have backup, but since I do not, I would be happy to go ahead and just listen to the minutes. I can listen to the meeting and do the minutes from that.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dave?
And I just wanted to check with you. I know that I had sent a note. I am on vacation leaving July 14th. And I also wanted to just pose a question, and this may be out of order, is if we go back to in-person meetings, it would be the tape recorder that we would just be listening to. So I don't know if this committee is willing to move back to in-person meetings. I know council has moved back to in-person meetings. I don't know what the directives of this committee would be.
My recollection is that they've left it up to the committee to decide how they want to proceed. When we discussed it at our last meeting, it was pretty unanimous that people wanted to continue via Zoom. And why don't I just ask the members what their preference is for our July meeting?
And as an option, you also have the option to suspend the meeting for July to
That's
give
correct.
people a break as well.
Okay. Would anyone care to weigh in on those options?
I'm neutral.
Monica. Sonia, you're neutral? Okay.
I'm neutral.
I like the online but I'm amenable to what Member Johnson said to do a meeting in the park, but maybe wait till after July when everyone can be there.
It might be kind of miserable right now.
Yeah, might be better a little bit later in the summer. I don't know.
Monica, you have your hand raised.
I'm for suspending the July meeting because the date you suggest is my birthday.
Oh,
Well, we can celebrate your birthday. What's wrong with that? Oh, come on. It's a great way to spend your birthday.
Yeah, right? I can think of nothing better. No, it just in light of, well, I mean, if we do, I don't care where we have meetings. I'm in favor of meetings in the park. I'd be okay with suspending the July meeting though, because there's a lot, people are traveling and things are happening. So,
Maureen,
and Maureen won't be here. So,
and just as a caveat, if you guys decide to have an in-person meeting, I will not listen to the recording. You guys will have to take minutes yourself, or I'll have to get somebody to come in and do it.
Robert and Colleen, would you like to weigh in?
I don't know about suspending the meeting. I don't know why we can't have it on the regular date.
Because several people can't attend.
Okay.
Robert, would you like to weigh in?
I am good with whatever you guys decide.
Okay, well, I would like to propose that we suspend the meeting because I will have company during the middle of July, actually the middle of July through the end of July. So I would like to propose to the committee that we go ahead and suspend our July meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay. Those in favor of suspending our July meeting, since we have so many people that will be out, please raise your hand. Looks like that's unanimous, Maureen. Thank you all very much for your patience. And then as we move through the meeting tonight, we can decide, Carson, whether or not we end early or we continue on. Okay, next on the agenda is Code Manager Lewis to talk about code enforcement significant events. I see we have a report.
I was rather rude to you all. I didn't even say hello. So hi, first off, just jump right into business. It's been kind of a busy day for me. So I just wanted to provide that first quarter report and give you the details of the first 3 months. We're still here at the police department, especially code, because we have our separate subcategory in our new system, and being able to pull anything. And we do have a training scheduled for the beginning of July to hopefully navigate some of the way that we can pull data, and some of the fields that we currently added, specialized fields, we currently can't search, and that has been set back to the programming department through the RMS program, so that we can search the highlighted fields. We basically broke them down similarly to this as to what you see now, so that we'd be able to pull reports easily, and that search function is not currently working. So just to let you all know, we are working to resolve that. It's just that the code enforcement division of our police reporting system had some specialized fields that they didn't take into account during the reporting process. But I wanted to see if you had any specific questions about the statistics that you might see. It was, the last several months have been consistently busy. You can take into account that we did have one significant storm event, but as you all know, most of the snow did not come this spring as we normally see. It was in the form of rain, so you're not going to see the significant violations that we had. We did have minimal icing over due to some slight precipitation of snow. And then the animal control continued to go up, and this was for a variety of reasons for proactive enforcement as well as calls for service.
Are there any questions for Code Manager Lewis? Cohen, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I just have one quick question. You mentioned in a previous meeting that you'd had two complaints or resolutions on trees and shrubs. When did those happen? And can you get us some detail on what the problem was and how it was resolved?
I can tell you now that the tree issues that we had specifically were related to reports of dead and dying trees. And my understanding is arborists have been called, and the trees are of a specific species that we have within the city that do show some disease, but not to the extent that they pose an extreme danger to the property, and therefore the trees were allowed to remain, and they sought some pesticides to resolve the issues. We do have one additional tree complaint that does not show on here that unfortunately did get struck by lightning at some point last year, and we did put them on notice, and the tree has been removed. So that is not reflected in this. That was as of last month, and it was a large pine tree in the front of a property that did pose an extreme danger to the property and the residents nearby.
Was it all on private property?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions for Code Manager Lewis? So Dave, the animal control for the month of March, was significantly higher. Was that just because the weather was nicer and people were out, or was there something specific happening?
It was the weather is one contributing factor. The other factor is we also went into the summer hours in some of the parks, and so we did do a considerable amount of education at a couple of the parks, just letting people know that the off-leash hours, what they were and what they consisted of, and so that also accounted for a portion of the contacts that we had.
Okay. Carson?
So Code Manager Lewis, when you say education, does that always mean like tickets, or is it also just talking to people, or do tickets only come when it's like a multiple warning for the same thing for the same people, or how does that work out?
So we like to use the whole, as you all know, the primary purpose of code enforcement is to gain voluntary compliance. And our first step is always through the education. And so when we document something as being public relations or education, that means there was an actual violation, and we took the opportunity to educate that park user or that dog owner as to what our municipal ordinances are. And so it is a violation, but we do call it as education.
Did those get tracked differently when it's a contact with someone to educate them versus a violation? I mean, so does that mean that some violations that are issued don't end up being fees, or every time someone gets one of these notices, it's a fee?
No, so if we were talking specifically about animals, unless it was a contact that resulted in, let's say, something that's outside of our discretion, like a bite occurs and we need to issue a summons, that's automatic. But if we're in a park and we see somebody that's off leash, that's not a repeat violator, which somebody has not been warned repeatedly, we take the opportunity to inform them of what the ordinance is. It is still a violation, and it's still a face-to-face contact, or a warning is what we would call it. But we like to use the term education because warning just has such a harsh connotation. when our goal is to gain compliance, not pass out tickets left and right.
So do the stats that you give us include warnings, or do those not get tracked since
No. They're tracked in here.
Oh, okay. So you guys track all public contacts?
Not all public contacts that are considered enforcement.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Not relating to the statistics, Dave, what about the park ranger position? Has that been posted?
It has been posted and we have reviewed 41 applications.
Oh, wow.
I did report to my team and city staff that we have not had an applicant that has met the basic needs of the position. So we're still searching.
It's encouraging that you had so many responses, though. And you hear about, all the openings and people are having trouble finding people to hire. So that's encouraging. If people want to work with you,
Yes.
well, hopefully someone appears that does meet the qualifications. Carson?
Is the posting for that like on the city website?
It is. If you go to the Inglewood website and I think at the bottom it says work here or jobs or openings, it automatically lists all of the current job openings for the city of Inglewood.
Thank you.
We did recently have that moved to the top to try and garner some additional attention within the search browsers.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions for Code Manager Lewis? All right, seeing none, we will move on to agenda item number 5, update from City Council Liaison, Councilmember Russell.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all. There's just a couple things. As has already been said, City Council went back to City Hall a week ago this past Monday. So we've had one council meeting and one study session. We will be meeting in the community room probably until October because they are updating the audio visual equipment in the council chambers, and we have to guarantee that it'll be dust free and not disturbed in there. So they're just leaving us in the community room. And then the other thing, as you all know, the new city attorney is here, City Attorney Tamara Niles. And she's been here for the last 2 meetings, and it's really great to have her aboard and to be moving forward with that. There may be other things I'm not certain, but if you have any questions, that might jog my memory too.
Did the off-leash task force present anything on Monday or last Monday?
No, the off-leash task force has had, I believe they may have had their last meeting last week, and somebody called me, and obviously supervisor, or I forget what your title is, Dave, I apologize, can probably answer that question because he is on that committee. And I'm not sure, I did get a question last week when they will be presenting to council. So why don't you ask Dave that question?
Dave, you had your answer.
So we did have the final meeting of the off-leash task force last week. They went through multiple recommendations and ideas. The mediator is putting together a final report and I believe a presentation. Don't quote me on the date because it has not been set, but it's probably going to happen in the beginning of August, just to re-emphasize all of the survey results, the community feedback, as well as information that was brought forward by the committee members.
Okay.
Thank you for that. That did help me also, Dave, because I have had some questions on that, and I was looking on the agenda and could not find it. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for Councilmember Russell? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to the Communications Subcommittee update. Member Johnson?
I submitted topics for the next quarterly article. I submitted 3 topics. I asked for at least 2 spaces in the magazine, but I haven't heard back. One would be another EAB reminder, and the other would be a spotlight on what code enforcement does for our city and how citizen participation helps that train move forward. And the other topic was related, so it could be in the same article, which is why we're making reports on dangerous animals is the responsible thing to do, and it's being a good neighbor. So I haven't heard back. I've asked for a meeting. I think they might be rotating through vacations or something because I haven't heard back from anyone in quite a while. So I will be following up with them, and I guess I need to generate some copy for the copywriter or just information. I'd love to sit down with Dave and ask him some questions like we did for the January article and gather resources, and of course invite everyone on the committee to participate in that process as well.
I noticed there were a couple of social media posts on EAB since our last meeting.
Yeah, and Dave Lee has been communicating about a few different things, and Vanessa has shared those postings for approval. I also gave them some information about neighbors with ash trees that were willing to do video spots, and I also asked if Dave Lee could do one because I feel like he is a good communicator and represents the community well, and he's I think he'd be a good person to do that. Yeah, so that's kind of like in limbo right now, but we do need to get moving on copy for the next issue, and hopefully that'll start with getting approved from more than one space, and hopefully a big space for our article next time around.
Okay. Thank you, Monica. Are there any questions for Monica? Nope. All right. Carson?
I hadn't heard about the video spots before. Where is that for, like the Facebook, or where will those show up?
Yeah, Chris Hargreaves, when we first met, mentioned that somebody on their staff used to be a reporter, a local reporter, and would be willing to do like kind of man on the street type interviews and like 30-second or less spots that we could put on places like Facebook, Nextdoor, the landing page, and on Englewood website. But we just thought those would be pretty efficacious. I'd love to see one with Dave Lee standing in front of one of those trees, the ash trees that's wrapped, and explaining that and how the city's moving forward with it, and maybe do the leaf identification. I think that could be very, very helpful. I know that since I've learned how to identify one, I see them everywhere now, and
Yeah, me too.
I freak out because I'm like, that's a lot of trees, a lot of beautiful mature trees in our canopy. So yeah, so that's what that's about. It's and we've been talking about it for a long time. And now that the ash trees are in bloom from now until the fall, they're quite beautiful in the fall also. That's the next thing I would like to see happen. So yeah.
I don't know if they'd be interested, but I know Member Russell and her husband have ash trees.
Oh, that would be great if you would, Member Russell.
I don't really know that I have anything to share. I mean, we haven't.
You've been treating them for years, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
That's all we want to share, is that your neighbors are doing it. This is why. I mean, it has such an impact on the environment, your property value, the aesthetic of our community. You could speak to
And-
all of that, and you're used to being on camera.
And protecting the tree canopy too.
Yeah, I mean, we are called the Wooded Nook, so
All right, I may consider that.
thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Member Russell, if you didn't want that.
Word gets out. Thanks.
Colleen, you have your hand raised?
I just unmuted. Okay, there's a huge ash tree across the street from me and down one. I look at it every day and I talk to the neighbors about it. I thought it was a box elder and they're often confused. And she said the arborist told her that it was definitely an ash and that all ash cultivars are subject to the emerald ash borer. And it's a huge, huge tree, and I don't think it can be treated the size it is. And she's kind of anxious about it. It's a real addition to the neighborhood, but I'm sure she can't afford to treat a tree that's like 60, 70 inches around. I mean, the thing is huge.
The arborist that the tree could not be treated?
Said between 10 inches in diameter and 20 inches, was it? Or 30 inches, I believe Dave Lee identified it. Beyond that, treatment doesn't do much. And, unless you started it when it was still under. But at any rate, it might be good for a video spot because it's a gorgeous tree. And we'd really miss it in the neighborhood if it has to come down.
All right. Further questions from Member Johnson? Okay. Thank you, Monica.
Hey, Julie, just if anybody has neighbors like that, like Colleen, if you want to send me their information, that'd be great. If anybody would like to forward information for neighbors who might be interested in helping, that'd be great.
It might be interesting. I mean, the communications department has a better sense for this, but since we have so many trees and so many people care about them, it would be kind of fun to have like a mosaic or a collage of people standing in front of their ash tree showing that they care about them and they're part of their world and they're beautiful. And
yeah, we could call it It's My Ash and have people post on there, because that's our,
yeah.
Yeah. That'd be, Julie, that's a great idea. I love that.
Well, that's pretty scary, but thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you, Monica. And now we will move on to unfinished business to review and discuss proposed changes to tree code. So just to remind everybody where we were, we have two groups of recommendations right now. One is to have a list of topics for code changes to submit to the city attorney. And then there's also a list of recommendations or programs for city council to consider to assist residents with EAB ash trees that have nothing to do, that is not related to code. And at our last meeting, Colleen offered to compile further suggestions for our consideration, and I have those in our agenda. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, but I started going through it, Colleen, and I was wondering if you'd be willing to walk us through the document and help us understand and answer questions. Would that be okay with you? Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can all see what we're talking about here. Okay. Am I sharing? Got it. Okay. So there was, at the top of this, Coen, there in the red, can you explain? I didn't understand what you were trying to say here.
It's our process for recommending changes to code. It's in our bylaws that we do a comprehensive evaluation of any particular code and decide whether we want to recommend alteration, deletion, revision, or additions. And then we present it to council. And if they accept our recommendations or part of them, then they direct the city attorney to work with us on the wording. That's the way it worked with the ice and snow revisions. And that's what the attorney told us at the time that the process was supposed to be. And it is in our bylaws, but that's the way it works.
Okay.
And then they also, she also, at the time when we did, we were working with her on the changes to the ice and snow. She did say that there should be more of these codes put into the Violation Bureau instead of the general penalty, which is $2,650. So she recommended that most of the codes do that. And specifically because the ice and snow was just a tiny little paragraph in Title 11, then, it was elaborated on. And because it's kind of different from any other of the codes, that there was its own process put in. But she did make a point of saying that more of the codes should be put in the Violation Bureau. And I just wanted to address it, that we needed to work with the code as it was and make recommendations within the code.
So thank you for reminding us on how we go about changing code, because I think it is confusing, and we finally were able to work out that process, and we've been able to get 2 code changes enacted over the past year and a half. So that's a good reminder. But what is the Violation Bureau?
It's not felonies, since it's $2,650 is felony weight as a fine. Anything over 1,000, but that's what she said. The Violation Bureau is what the animal control stuff is done. The council sets a schedule of fees in the Violation Bureau. And it just saves a lot of effort and time than putting everything in, in the general penalties.
And just so everybody knows, I can't see everyone. I can only see 5 people. So please let me know if you've got your hand raised. I do see Carson. Carson?
So can you remind me, have we run any of our recommendations as currently it stands around the tree shrub code stuff through any iteration of the city attorney, or has this only been within us so far?
It's only been with us so far, with the exception of, I believe it was 2 years ago, the city attorney at the time provided us with some recommended changes that she thought we should consider.
Okay, I think that's what I was thinking of, because I thought it had gone through the city attorney at some point.
But that was actually before the EAB issue.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's right. Because that was, okay, yeah. I remember. That was before our meeting with Mr. Lee.
Right, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Colleen?
Yeah, actually, it was in the beginning of 2018. And after she did that, she reiterated that it wasn't supposed to go to her until we were supposed to go to the city council, and they were to make a determination, and then she would write the code based upon their acceptance or rejection of our recommendations. And then it would come back to us, and she would sit there with us and make sure that the wording was what we wanted. And that's when she said violation bureau. But that all happened, a long time ago. Those recommendations are not anything to do with what we're doing now.
Right, and that's what we did with the change to the dog code with the last round. We submitted a letter to City Council. City Council reviewed that and then directed the city attorney, interim city attorney, to draft the code. He presented that to us, and then from there it went back to City Council and was approved and has now been codified, I believe. So I'm unclear as what moving penalties into the violation bureau means. I mean, we haven't been talking about that at this point. Dave, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that everyone here understands that we have two components. We do have the court process. We also do have the Violations Bureau, and the Violations Bureau is mainly used for lesser offenses, such as parking violations, barking dog, off leash, those things that can save an entire court trial. Somebody can just pay a fee. Those fees are established by the court, not by City Council. So the court determines what those fees are on an annual basis. And not all things can go through the Violation Bureau. And I would say particularly this one, we can't just give a ticket for someone to have a tree. We may eventually have to get a court order to have a tree removed at some point, especially if it's a danger. So my professional opinion, and you can run this by the new city attorney, would be that this would not be a Violation Bureau situation, because it's not just something someone can pay a fine with. We actually might have to abate, or the nuisance may need to be removed.
Colleen?
I think that's wrong, because I did talk to the city attorney at the time 3 or 4 years ago, and she did say that this is, because it is fairly minor, because it needs to go through the court anyway. All of these fines can be adjudicated. Dangerous dog can be adjudicated, but the fine is not $2,650. It's a Violation Bureau thing where the fines are set. And it's not just the court that sets them. Quite a few of the fees are set by the City Council, or they're set by the code, like we did with ice and snow. That could also be a dangerous thing, if somebody slips and falls on ice. So I don't see any reason why, mostly, if they have to remove a tree, it doesn't need to be a $2,650 fine in addition to the situation. And I have plenty of I have a council request that was dated in 2016, and it was renewed in 2018, that made all property disputes on trees the problem between the neighbors. The only thing that isn't done civilly in court is if a tree on private property endangers the right of way, then the city has the right to notify the owner of the tree and work from there.
Maureen, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I think you guys are getting bogged down in something that you don't need to be bogged down in. Right now, you're wanting to make changes to code, and the next step would be for you to send this to City Council to see whether or not they even are interested in it. And then if they do say, yes, we want to make these changes and we direct the city attorney to do it, that would be the time when the city attorney, it will come to your meeting and go through whatever you guys want to do. That would be the time to talk about the Violations Bureau. But right now, you guys are getting bogged down in something you don't really need to get bogged down in, because right now, all you should be concentrating on is the changes that you want to make and how you want to present it to city council.
That makes sense to me.
My
Monica?
hand is up. Okay, thank you. Maureen, like, you are irreplaceable. You're psychic. That's exactly what I was going to say. I'm just listening to the conversation and trying to digest it all. And what I'm picking up from the conversation is I feel like we're talking more about what are the rights of the code enforcement officers in the city in regards to a person's rights on their own private property. And what we're really wanting to talk about is what the code is. And that's a whole different conversation that maybe should be had at some point. What is the perspective of this committee as a group on that? But right now, I'd really like to know, what about trees and shrubs? So thank you, Maureen, for interjecting that. I just want to second her motion.
I agree.
Okay. Thank you, though, Colleen. I appreciate you bringing up the issue. I just wasn't sure how that related to the work that we've been doing on EAB. It seemed like a tangential topic. But I do think the reason why you probably put that there is the recommendation would cascade many changes within code. But again, it doesn't necessarily relate to the EAB issue at hand. Okay.
Well, code takes into account diseased trees, but if we just go through the code as it is, you can see where the changes possibly need to be made, and it will take care of that problem.
Okay. So I had taken all of our comments and summarized them into a higher level of issues that we wanted to present to city council as something that would need to be addressed. And then of course, that's when if they agree, then we would work this with the city attorney. And so what you've done is you've gone through and commented on here one of the, and so why don't, if it's all right with you, Colleen, once again, I'll put you on the spot and ask you to help us understand your thinking here. So the question was city authority to come into private property to inspect trees. And you're saying that the city does, or that the code enforcement does not have the ability to enter property without a warrant?
No, I didn't say that. What I said was that Code Manager Lewis has stated that he has to protect private property rights and cannot enter private property without a court-ordered warrant. This is backed up by the Fourth Amendment and SCOTUS, who recently decided 9-0 that that's the case. And only, as far as I know, only police officers can get a warrant.
Okay. My recollection, Dave, your hand is raised.
I just want to make sure that we're clear on just this particular part, since I mentioned we are only permitted to do our inspections from the public right-of-way, or if it's viewable from the public right-of-way, we can still go off of a citizen's complaint that has plain view. We also have exigent circumstances in which we can enter a property, and there's several circumstances that have been affirmed by the Supreme Court. And as municipal officers, we do have limited authority to enter a property. And there are certain circumstances, one of them being animal-related issues, as well as any extreme health and safety matters, that we can enter a property, as well as a police officer. We don't always have to have a warrant. We do have to have a warrant to enter inside of somebody's home, physical living structure. So I just want to clarify that. If that's something that you guys are needing to change within the code, I don't believe that's the case.
Monica, your hand is raised.
So Officer Liz, can you get a warrant?
I do have the authority to work, and we have issued warrants, arrest warrants for people who have not complied with orders. So warrants are available to the city as a whole.
Carson?
Code manager list. So if you could see from like public right away, or a citizen adjacent could see and share that view with you of a branch that could potentially fall and damage, like hurt somebody or property, then that's the kind of thing that you would be able to get a warrant for?
Well, we wouldn't seek a warrant in that case. We would post the property because it's an exigent circumstance. We can see the distressed tree. We do have the process that we have to follow, just like if we were to see weeds in someone's front yard or we just see trash, we still post the property. It's in plain sight. We can view it just like with a police officer. If it's in plain sight, it's a violation. You can see it, you can seize it, you can take care of that issue. Where we run into the concern, and this is very far and few between in the city of Inglewood, is where can I not see into an area, whether it's a front residence or even from the alley or the back of someone's house, a large tree that poses a danger to the resident or to the adjoining community. And again, we're not tree experts. We issue that notice. They are directed to seek counsel of a professional licensed arborist, that they are required to present that information to us within 45 days, and they're required to follow those circumstances. If they don't, we do issue a summons into court, and then a case is brought against that person where the due process phase goes through to potentially eliminate that nuisance, either by them coming into voluntary compliance within the court phase, or they can be ordered to take care of it within a certain time. And if not, then the city can be ordered to remove the tree. We do not go onto someone's property to remove the tree. We do like to do judicial abatements. We very rarely do administrative abatements at this point, only because it does run some liability and cautions for the city. And so we sparingly use administrative abatement, and that order has to actually come from the city manager. We would direct his office, provide recommendations, and he would order that administrative abatement, but we always try to eliminate this through judicial abatement.
Thank you.
Colleen?
Yeah, one of the things that's all, the nuisance value is all in Title 15, and there's a process, and we do have authority to make comments on that process. One of the things I recommended when I went through the code as it exists and made notes was that instead of the process that is outlined there, that we make it the same nuisance process that's in Title 15, which is, it's under our authority because it's health and welfare issues. And that way, everybody gets notified. If it's an emergency, they can issue whatever based upon the process, and because it's a nuisance or it's been adjudicated or determined to be a nuisance, a problem. And I think that would make it very, very clear if everything that's under code enforcement's authority is done by the Title 15 process. And that was something that the city attorney had had recommended. The only reason it wasn't applied with snow and ice is because of certain climate issues, and ice is kind of an emergency situation. So that's one of the recommendations I made, that they follow that process.
I would not disagree with Colleen on this particular point, specifically with trees. There may be some underlying other code concerns because it's placed in here, because it also conforms with what trees can be planted. It has some zoning implications, not just nuisance abatement. So it may need to be written into this code. And again, it could be a recommendation for you all that maybe this be moved, or maybe it could be recommended that this particular title be the enforcement fall under the nuisance procedures. Those are things that you as a committee can make to a recommendation to council, but I agree having some kind of consistency across the board with this particular nuisance would be a benefit.
Can you help me understand when you say the process would be different? Under Title 15, I've got up here the way our code is currently written in terms of what happens.
It does outline in the code as to how we're supposed to follow what we follow, but again, we also have to take into consideration that we don't have an arborist on site, so we require them to get an outside arborist. It does outline the 45 days. It does take longer to mediate this. You do have to take into consideration, though, if you do go through if you refer it to the nuisance process, it might make it simpler for everyone to understand. And again, this is more complicated than my expertise in moving codes, changing codes. The 45 days is probably reasonable, but if you look through the nuisance process, it's 21 days total that we go through. It's just an option that I'm presenting to you all.
So what is the process of 11? If it's not a nuisance process, what is the process called?
We have to follow what's specifically in the code, and so the code specifically outlines the 45 days. It outlines the timeframes.
Got it. Okay. Colleen, you have your hand raised?
Oh, I was just going to elaborate when you asked what the process is. It's under 11-5-6A. And it's very cumbersome. And as far as I know, it hasn't ever been enforced since they got rid of the Bureau. If you would like, it would be easier, I think, if we just go through the code as it exists, because a lot of things would change if we get the reestablishment of the forestry department or the community department. Not only would we be in alignment with the Tree City requirements, the standards, it would also make it very clear who had the authority. And it would be an arborist. The city forester would be an arborist who could make these determinations on his own. And then we could give him authority and then change whenever we had a situation. Emergency notices are kind of weird when it comes to trees, because we don't know that the tree is going to fall necessarily, like what happened. I forget when it was, at least 3 years ago on July 4th, a tree in the park at Bates Logan suddenly exploded at the base and fell. And if it hadn't fallen on power lines, the guy that was pulling into his driveway adjacent would have been killed. His car would have been crushed. And I know that there'd been some complaints about that tree. That people had noticed that it was in danger, but you couldn't tell it from the canopy. It looked fine, but there was something going on at the base in the roots, and it had just completely, it was just destroyed inside. And it suddenly in the heat just went boom. It was in the wrong place. It was a beautiful tree. Everybody loved it, but it was dangerous, but nothing was done about it when something could have been done about it. And fortunately, it just took out our power in 100-degree heat for for a lot of hours, about 8 or 10 hours before they could put it all back together. But there's no real emergency. We just know that some trees are dangerous. Some of them are growing in such a way they're going to be a danger to the right of way. And yet nothing has been done about them. And it's just, if we get some consistency and put it under the already established nuisance code, it'll clear things up, I think, for a lot of people.
Dave, your hand's raised.
I just wanted to provide some direction. You guys have spent so much time talking and discussing this topic. And I think at this point, with all the research and things, I think what you guys need to do is, rather than evaluate the code, maybe you can come forward with some recommendations, such as you would like to have code changed to mirror the goals that you want to achieve, and allow the city attorney to write that code based off of changes that other cities have done. Where they want to put this would really be up to them to best suit the way our code is written. Our code is different than other cities. So, and maybe Maureen can second this. I think what has been successful with this group is making an overall general recommendation, and then allowing the city to draft take that recommendation, draft what they see, and put it forward to you all. I think you guys have done all the work. I think now it's just saying, rather than worrying where it goes, how it goes, what the time frames are, really just posing, this is the problem that's coming to the city of Inglewood. This is what we'd like to see change. This is the recommendation. Can you please bring something forward to us? And then have council direct the city attorney to do that. Because I think you guys are right on the tipping point of completing this project. And I'm so proud of you for doing that.
I've pulled up for everyone. This is where we were in May. We summarized the issues here under key issues. And then based on that, I listed from all of our conversations the high level recommendations of code changes that we would like to see. So what I'm hearing is there is a recommendation to modify the process for tree and shrub issues to a nuisance process, and moving it into something similar to Title 15. And I don't know how to word that. Colleen, maybe you have?
Yeah, what I would suggest is what I put in my notes on the code as it exists. First, that we recommend reestablishing the community forestry department. There's a reserved space for it, 11-5-3. And I know that's something Dave Lee is presenting also. So if we make that recommendation, it'll tie into that, and then under 11-5-4, it's also reserved, and that's where we put in the authority for the city forestry, to develop programs and assistance for people to combat any disease that's come our way or infestation that comes our way. And then under 11-5-5, the property owner's responsibility for public right-of-way. I think that needs to be rewritten, because I don't think there is any legal authority to force a private property owner to be responsible for the right-of-way, except if anything on his property impinges upon the right-of-way, then we could ask him to take care of that. And that's already in here about they have to maintain clearances over the right-of-way, because there are some places where there are trees in the public right-of-way where they actually have street trees, but those were planted by the city. But that's just my opinion on that. But under the preservation and removal procedures, the recommendation would be to strike all of the process, which is half the code, and just simply say the process for any problems with trees or violations of trees would follow the process outlined in Title 15 for nuisance, emergencies, and normal problems. Because almost all the codes except for this one are listed under Title 15. And the first thing is the administration, which is a door hanger notice, 10 days, a posting notice, 14 days, an appeal process if they want to appeal it. And it'd be a shorter process if there was really a problem. And right now, there hasn't really been any enforcement, and nor can there be the way this is written without the city forestry being reestablished. So if you don't have to do it within here, it's just that, I know Carson said that he felt it would be a lot more, it would be a lot easier to understand if some of the suggestions were written within the code. And so that's why I did it that way. And then I just put, well, this doesn't work. And it would work better if we just said, change this and put it back into the Title 15. It used to be that way for the Title 16 issues. We have no authority over Title 16, but the very last sentence in Title 16 was all zoning violations have to follow the process outlined in Title 15. That changed without, I just found out that it had changed, and I don't know when it changed. But at any rate, it was a very simple statement, and that could be in here too. So, that I just thought it would be easier, and it would take out half the code. And then there would just be some housekeeping stuff like under 11-5-8. It has a funny little thing. And I added, and this was something that was approved by the city attorney before, back 4 years ago or 3 years ago. We take out, they can't be planted or allowed to grow and are subject to removal, but eliminate the except for mature trees because that would completely eliminates the ability to get rid of prohibited trees because it says 1 inch in diameter. Well, that's not a mature tree. So, obviously there was a mistake. So any tree can be removed. And if we want to remove a prohibited tree, we need to take that out. But that's just a little housekeeping thing. But a lot of the problems would be solved by just reestablishing, putting back in the 2 reserve space, recommending that they reestablish the forestry department and reestablish the authority for the department, because basically without them, none of the rest of it can happen. There's just, and it will eliminate our problem of being out of compliance with the Tree City standards. And we haven't been for 21 years in compliance with the Tree City standards. And that could be part of their authority to administer that. And it would eliminate a lot of these other issues because property rights are preeminent. And with the exception of when they impinge upon other people's safety in the right of way, I'm pretty sure that people have the right to manage their trees on their private property.
Dave, I see your hand is raised, but I want to ask Colleen a question. So Colleen, we're trying to come up with this list of changes that we would like to make to code, not necessarily rewriting the code, but I'm asking you to help me state what it is that we're recommending.
Okay,
So-
11-5-3, we want to reestablish the community forestry department.
Okay.
And put in the goal and purpose there. And in
Goal and
11
purpose- and the goal and purpose of what? The forestry department?
yeah, and you know, you're talking about a mission or a goal. It can go right in there with when you reestablish the city forestry department. And a goal and purpose of, I just put in this, encouraging and protecting and assisting private property owners in the expansion and maintenance of the private property tree canopy. And we could, you know, we're very proud of this Tree City designation, but we haven't been in compliance with the Tree City standards since this was eliminated. That was the first standard we had to meet, was having a legal authority over public property trees. So we can mention that in there or not. Same with the 11-5-4, giving them the authority to do programs, encourage removal of prohibited trees, encourage planting of diverse trees, you know, with total authority over public property trees and trees or vegetation that impinges upon the right of way. And then something on 11-5-5 about the difference between private property trees and public property trees or vegetation, and whose responsibility it is. And I happen to think that unless it's impinging upon and based upon several council requests and statements by the city attorney, they don't have any authority over trees that are in dispute between property owners. It was very specific that all trees that were in dispute or too close to a property line, that was an issue for property owners to put into their, you know, to do it civilly. It had nothing to do with the city. I don't know if I agree with that, but that's what the city attorney said in writing. So, and if you'd like to see that, I can send you the copy. But basically, I would just make it clear about the right of way and the public property. I don't think that any property owner should be responsible for the right of way or any plantings in the right of way that the city planted or allowed to happen. But they should be responsible for keeping any tree or vegetation on their property from impinging upon the right of way. And I think that was the intention of that as I go back through and do my research, but it's not clear here. So I would recommend that get cleared up. And under 11-5-6, that's where I would recommend that we replace that language on the process with, it should follow the process outlined in Title 15. And that'll eliminate any need to worry about warrantless searches and violations of property rights and violations of constitutionality.
Okay, so Colleen, if I can have you look at the screen. So the summary of the code changes, what I'm trying to do is modify what we have here based on our conversation. So I added establish or reestablish the forestry department in order to establish authority and also include goal and purpose. So basically we could take this one and move it underneath here if the forestry department is reestablished, right?
As far as I can tell, I can't really read that.
Okay. And then the second item I have here is that we would move trees and shrubs to Title 15, the Title 15 nuisance process. And I know I can better word that, but I'm just trying to capture what we're discussing here.
Mhm.
Chair
And what I'd
Bowden,
like to, yes,
um,
sorry, I didn't see your hand.
well, several things, but I don't mean to cut you off or slow you down, but I want to make a couple suggestions about how we approach this that might make it a little easier for all of us. I really appreciate is that okay?
Mhm.
Okay.
I welcome the help.
All right, Member Dickerson, thank you very much for highlighting all of the changes the way you did. I like seeing them in both the ways because we've got kind of the list of overall goals and suggestions and then the actual edits in the code, which I think the edits in the code are really nice to see. And I would just suggest, Chair Bowden, that maybe we look at the actual, like if you switch down to the code part, could we, like, I feel like it's difficult when Member Dickerson goes through like so many points all at once. Like I'm trying to take notes with all my thoughts, but rather like all of us address one of those at a time, maybe as we go through the code. And that would potentially be easier for all of us to keep track of all of this input. Like, could we start with talking about what this forestry thing means, and then all of us address that, and then move through the code changes in the code? Like that's just my suggestion. I'm certainly open to whatever you think is best, but to me, that would be easier to keep it in my head, what we're talking about, if we just kind of address it as a point by point and try, instead of trying to do it all at once in these large passes.
I'm very open to that. So I have that section where we have the actual code here, and where she's talking about reestablishing the forestry department. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. So like I have questions just about that. I mean, if we put that, like say we cause that to go into the municipal code, isn't that also causing the need for a new set of expenses for the city? And do we want to structure that in a way that it be more maybe ambiguous, such that if the city has the establishment of forestry, then it works this way, and if the city is not currently having a forest, a funded or staffed forestry department, then it works this way, rather than forcing it one way or the other. Anyway, and I'm sure Code Manager Lewis probably has better ideas on that too.
Code Manager Lewis, your hand is raised.
That's actually the point that I was going to bring up. I'm going to caution you again. You guys have great intentions. And I know that City Council, this will raise some red flags if you're reestablishing an ordinance or requesting. You're adding a potential 110 to 125,000 annual budget, full-time employee. And I'm sure City Council will have concerns about that, which is why we originally had moved this to utilizing private services that are licensed within the city of Inglewood to do the same thing for the citizen and present that to the city. So it's the same training, same procedure. The city's just not taking on that burden or expense. And we already do have the authority over any trees that is in public property. I had a tree, I recommended a tree for removal last year from Bates Logan Park because it did have disease. So we do have that authority already. We do have contracts in place to handle those if it can't be done by the Parks Department or the Public Works Department. We also had some cottonwoods cut down that were diseased in the last year. So we do have that authority already.
Colleen, your hand's raised.
Yeah, Dave Lee has already stated that he is putting this concept forward to the city council and getting it budgeted in. So if we want to continue being a tree city, we have to reestablish the forestry department. And I know they got rid of it as a cost-cutting measure, but it's actually cost the city for one thing, it hasn't been done on a large scale. A lot of things have not happened. And before, 3 years ago, the committee was discussing this. And of course, you and I are the only ones left that were involved with this. But at any rate, we can recommend this, but it's still, I think the other changes that I put in here take care of the warrant problem, a few other things, and the authority thing. So if they don't choose to reestablish the department on the recommendation of Dave Lee, we could put an alternative, the way that, the arborist, or, we could put it in as an alternative, contracting it out. But I think Dave Lee wants to be the head of the forestry department, and he's already an employee. So it wouldn't really be that much more of an expense.
Monica, your hand's raised.
Again, I'm just listening to what everybody's saying and trying to siphon it down. I have a question to the whole committee and to Officer Lewis. If anybody could, at this point, summarize what, just in a sentence, what the point of revising the tree and shrub ordinance, like what is the reason why we're doing it, like the big picture reason. If I think that like Officer Lewis said, all the work is here. And I'm wondering if we can't just submit a statement to the council and attach the work. Like here's why we think this needs to be revised. And, so why, can anybody answer that question right now? Because we've gotten so far in the weeds that I can't answer the question myself.
So early on, when we first started talking about it, our goal, and I think it's written somewhere, was to anticipate or was to proactively make changes to tree and shrub code to protect the city and the residents from the incoming EAB infestation. I think I had it worded better, but without going through my notes.
So is there any other reason we're doing this? Anyone?
I think if I can just state that because we're already here and we've dove into it, we have an opportunity to update code that hasn't been updated in 20 years, and bring it to current standards.
Sure, and best practices change over time. So couldn't that be our letter, that we want to revise the code to reflect these objectives? That, everything's changed from the perspective of the law, the environment, and the community has changed, and just submit that and put in some of these and just like submit all of this work that Colleen has done, which is excellent. I'm just curious because I feel like we spend so much time talking about, and I think I just would like us to see us put something forward to council. And with all this work, I feel like we could just do this over and over and over again. And all the legalities that we keep coming back to, like what is the right of the city, the code enforcement officer, the process. I feel like that's something that the city attorney is going to have to sift through anyways. So we're just speculating. if we just raise the general point, which I think is what Officer Lewis was saying, I think he's right. I think we're there. We just need to simplify it, submit it, and start the process, maybe.
So that's what I have here. I mean, this is what we had at our last meeting, and I think that's why Dave is saying we're right on the cusp, because it's conceptual, meaning here are the things that need to be done to code to help the city and residents deal with the upcoming infestation. And it's very basic, it's very high level. We're not writing code. So then that's really what we did with the animal ordinance. We identified where the gap was, and we recommended, here's what here's what needs to change. And then we left it up to the city attorney to figure out how to write that into the existing code structure. So that was what I was trying to bring us to, was a list of things that needs to change with the existing code. And that's why I keep trying to go back to this list, because if we can get agreement on this scope, then this is actually what we would submit to council with an explanation, obviously. And then that would help us have a conversation with the city attorney on why we're making the recommendation. Does that fit what you're trying?
Yeah, exactly. And you've just added in the number 11 and number 10 and everything. I'm just trying to support and push forward. Everything that's on that list, looks good to me. And everything you've said about establishing the forestry department, I have heard all those same things. I feel like we're really on the right track here, I guess. Yeah, I mean, what we're all looking at right now seems like it would be great to send with a letter of explanation. I guess I'm saying, like, I'm happy with that.
Okay. Maureen, you had your hand raised first.
I was just going to say that, yes, let all the this is something that you're presenting to city council. Let them have the city attorney come together with you guys and draft something that will work for all of you. There's no reason to go into all this technical issues right at this point in time. And you can go ahead and make a motion to send this to city council if you like.
Well, I did want to go through the recommendations that Colleen provided with us, because I wanted to make sure that we didn't miss anything, or and to include the ideas that she's presented. So that's why I wanted to go through the document that Colleen shared with us. Carson, your hand was raised next.
Then I like what the direction Member Johnson pushed us in on I think that can you maximize what you have on the screen? I can't see it all. And I don't know that I have. Yeah. And do you have on there, satisfy the 4 requirements for standards for a tree city?
No.
That probably would be good on there. And then on the forestry thing, I think that, we don't have to come up with the wording, but my point was that I think the wording can be made, by the city such that it satisfies that number 1 of the standards for tree city. Because I just read through that and it's pretty wide open. And so the municipal code can say, that it doesn't have to like define it the way it currently is, where it sounds like we're creating a specific, paid person role. It can just be, whoever the city designates. And, but otherwise, I agree that our high level, I think, is covered pretty well by your list there.
Okay. Real quick, like I have to get off in 5 minutes and head to the airport. Carson, would you like to continue reviewing the document that Colleen submitted? at this
I
point?
mean, we could update I'd say your list that you're working on right there. Oh, yeah, should be our master that we're working off now. So yeah, we could just I could take everyone through making sure there's nothing else we want to add there. Can you send me the current version of that or send me the link for that?
Yes, yes, will do. I will do that now, and I'm going to turn it over and then Coeen's document is in the agenda packet, so you can pull that one up, but I will send you the link to this document now.
Yeah, I've got all the stuff from
Okay,
Coeen. I've been going through it as we've been
okay,
talking, and then I guess just make me a host or
Yeah.
whatever it takes to be able to share.
okay. Coeen, you had your hand raised.
Pretty much, I was just going to say that what I did, putting notes in on the code, they don't have to be in the code. They could just be listed out, but they would cover almost everything on the list except for licensing, who can cut, prune, or remove trees. That's under Title V, which isn't under our authority. And as Dave Lee pointed out, all tree services are licensed and called arborists by the city. The only requirement, and I have a copy of the license, is the certification to apply pesticides. Per Dave Lee, all tree services licensed in Denver and Littleton are automatically licensed in Inglewood. And since Title V isn't under our authority, we don't need to even discuss that or add it into suggestions because it's already there. And say enforce use of arborists, the Title V licensing department issues updates to the list of licensed tree services when new or renewed licenses are accepted. So that's always available too. We don't need to even have that as part of it. Provide written notice to affected property owners if diseases are discovered. Well, that's already included in Title 15 on a nuisance, written notice, door hangers, whatever. And but I don't agree with this issue, written warrant to residents who do not maintain ash tree. I don't think that that's something that we want to have in there. And we never did come up with who has control and authority over right-of-way or who authorizes the planting of trees or plants in the right-of-way, because I don't think it does. And I think only the city.
Member Dickerson?
Yeah.
I'm trying to get this doc up. Can you hold where you're at? Because you just rattled through a few points.
Oh, sorry, I do tend to talk too fast. It's the summary of code changes that.
Can you hold? Can you
Sure.
just hold for a sec while I get this up and running?
Carson,
Yes.
there is a little green button on the bottom of your screen that should say share screen.
Yeah, but first I have to get the document working.
Okay.
And it's making me sign in with some account that I never use, if I can even get that to work.
Would you prefer to send me via email?
If you could just send me the actual DOCX file,
You
that
bet.
would be easiest, sure. And then I'll send you whatever I end up with.
Got it.
I just don't want to miss any of your points, Member Dickerson.
I think I wrote them in red, but.
Well, I know, but just to make sure everything's addressed, just give me just a sec. Because Chair Bowden has to leave and I want to make sure I've got access to what I need to share and keep this going.
Wow. Right. Okay, I know what to do. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why it won't let me edit that.
I don't know why it won't let me download it. Okay. Oh, yeah, here we go. Download. Sorry. And then I've got to run.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
There we
I mean-
go. All right. It's under downloads. Got it. Okay.
Just let me know when it's sent.
There we go.
Sent.
Sent. Okay, everyone have a safe July 4th, and I will talk to you later. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chair Bowden.
Bye.
Safe travels.
Yes.
The way it comes through. Here we go. Yay, an attachment. Sorry for the delay, everyone.
Boy, hasn't it been hot lately?
So hot. All right. Finally have control of the document. I'm going to share it. You all see it?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Trying to make sure I can see your hands. Okay. So of this list, the thing, so I'm just going to, I don't know how to do this faster than to go through just what is in the code edits. So we've got the forestry addressed. Responsibility for public right of way. Is that covered in here? Established authority, add modified definitions 5.2 or 11.5.2. That is, I don't know what's actually changing there. There's no edits. Go ahead, Member Dickerson.
Yeah, what I put in under that was that the definitions are determined by any changes or the wording in the code. And so it would be up to the city attorney to identify any definitions that needed to be changed.
Okay, that's good. 11.5, 3 she has in here already, right? Because that's the forestry part.
Well, see.
Yeah, established
Doing
forestry
that, that's
department.
kind of confused. 11.5.3 was reestablishing the community forestry department, and that would go along with the tree standards. The Tree City standards. But there are a couple of other ways it can be done. But it's some department that has legal authority over public trees. And it has to be in the code
Right.
according to the Tree City standards.
Okay, that's covered in our high level list now.
I don't know, is it?
Yeah, I just put it in. So I've got under 11.5.3, established forestry department establishes authority, include goal and purpose, add purpose to clarify importance of tree canopy, satisfy Tree City standard requirement 1.
Yeah. And then the responsibility for public right of way, we don't really know, but I do know that except for where private property plantings impinge upon the right of way is the only way, a private property owner has responsibility for the right of way. If and there are very few trees that are on public property.
Okay, so how about this? Clear up right of way responsibilities between city and citizens.
Yes.
Okay. Preservation and removal procedures. That's where we're talking about moving this into the established nuisance
Yes.
process, right? So where do we have
Well,
that in
the
here?
initial statement says public or private property. And I think what they meant by that was when private property impinges upon the right of way, but it's gotten a little muddled. So I would say that, that needs to be, clarify the responsibility of owners, private property in relationship to the right of way. And then A, B, C, D, E, and F should be replaced with the process outlined in Title 15.
All right, so move tree shrub code to Title 15 nuisance process, clear up and simplify.
No, just the process for dealing with it should be in the process outlined in Title 15.
Oh, right. Move tree shrub code part about dealing with, is it both? It says in the code I'm looking at preservation and removal.
Yeah, it's A through F is all about the process. Method of service, time for compliance, appeal, failure to comply, special assessments. It would just be a lot easier if it was just a simple statement.
Right. How about this? Move tree shrub code part about dealing with preservation and removal, or update. I'll just say, not even move, just utilize already established Title 15 nuisance process, clear up, simplify citizen versus city responsibilities. This also touches on ROW.
Yeah.
Okay. And then all the various strikes, I think we could sum that up, right?
Well, you can just forget about that. If we're just going to do a basic
Right, because
letter.
that's already covered. And we'll,
Yeah, just
and I
say
like,
strike A through F and replace with Title 15 process.
right, which they'll see because like Member Johnson said, we'll supply city council with our high level summary of code change recommendations along with the detailed work that you've done. And they'll see the relation between, I mean, that part's pretty straightforward. Please raise hands, speak up if anyone has anything.
And there's just one other housekeeping thing under, it's listed here, but not specifically. 11-5-8.
Yeah, I'm looking at that right now. So how do we sum that up?
Well, all ash cultivar, which is change it from emerald ash to ash, and consider adding in other trees that have been identified as invasive or weed trees. I think
What is this modify prohibited acts?
Modify, well, it says prohibited plantings and it lists a few, add in ash trees. and strike everything after removal, because a 1-inch tree is not a mature tree. Any tree can be removed, and by leaving it 1 inch in diameter, that means you can't get rid of any trees.
Got it.
Uh,
Update
so,
definition of mature trees to be appropriate. We're trying to be simple and like
yeah,
summarize.
just add, do not allow any of these prohibited trees to grow within the city, and remove the reference to 1-inch diameter mature tree.
Right. Well, the details are still going to be in what you've written. I'm trying to just make the high level summary.
Oh, okay.
All right. So we've got go ahead, Member Johnson.
I just want to say you're doing awesome. Keep it up.
Cool. All right. So we've got down through 5-8. I think we have good summary on this, Member Dickerson, because we've got, I don't even think we need to say at the top of this, prohibit ash trees. We'll just say 11.5.8, and our summary is modified prohibited acts, which I'm still not clear what's the point of that? What is it?
To make it possible to eliminate prohibited trees by changing the 1 inch, adding allowed to grow, and actually, adding ash trees, since all ash trees are a problem.
We got that covered. I got make sure to cover all ash trees, update definition, mature trees to be appropriate, and update what trees are not allowed, and modified prohibited acts to make possible to manage what trees are allowed and are allowed to be prohibited. I think that's enough to get the point across.
Okay.
And then, so we did get in here. Yeah. Satisfy standards for tree city. The 4 points. We don't even need to go more on that. Is there anything we're not? Let's see. So we got authority section.
Well, we've already got that,
Yeah,
in the other thing, so we could eliminate that one and just change the numbering.
right, because we have that down here in 11.5.3.
Right.
Okay, so that doesn't really do anything. 11.5.2. If we're going to try to do high level summaries for everything. Oh yeah, changes as appropriate. Okay. And then we've got that, we've got, okay, this solidify preservation. Oh, we've got that kind of duplicated now. Specify dead and dying trees subject to removal, as well as we could put some of this into here. Just enforcement staff has to. Do you
Well,
see
we
anything?
have to be specific about that.
Well, this isn't the code. This is just a high level.
Well, I know, but that whole thing is pretty high level, and it doesn't take into account that the city doesn't really have, unless it's going to impinge upon the right of way, the city doesn't really have any responsibility, any ability to order a tree to. But that bottom line is important, because that's one of the things that was said in by the city attorney. Well, it has to be, we can't do it when it's just a dispute. So, yeah.
All right. And then.
Wait a minute, there's something else up there. Make it clear. What was that? I think that came from me, but it was in a specific context, and I changed my mind.
Which part?
4. That's, it will be clear if it's, if we move it to Title 15. So I don't think
that's pretty much covered by the nuisance structure. right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So you can eliminate that.
Now, I thought this was already covered. I thought the city
Yeah, the
already,
licensing is already, it's in the licensing department. And so that's,
yeah, because they say anyone licensed in Denver or Lakewood is covered for Inglewood.
I think it's Littleton on the
Or Littleton.
actual,
Yeah, Denver
the
and Littleton.
actual code.
Yeah, I saw that earlier. So I think we're covered there. So
So
we might as
you-
well take things out that are not, that just make this more complicated. All right, so now what's this all about? Consider ordinances. So 1667, do we need this part?
No, we have no authority over Title 16.
Okay, why did Chair Bowden have this in here?
Because the city attorney 4 years ago or 3 years ago added things that added that into what she sent us to consider, but she changed her mind later.
Okay, so this is not something that
No,
we need to
that's-
worry about.
No, they have to do it. They have to, if they make these changes to our code, the city attorney will automatically go into Title 16 and see if any changes need to be made to Title 16 or eliminate it in ours. So it's not ours. The city attorney will do that.
Got it.
Thank you, Carson. That what you just put is perfect. I was going to ask you not to take that out. Just
Yeah, I saw when I had it highlighted, you raised your hand.
all right. We're like on it. We're vibing. Okay, got it.
Take out emerald because all ash trees are subject to the emerald ash borer.
All right, I'm gonna move that some of this just order wise, since that's kind of the first thing after. Yeah. And then this can obviously be cleaned up. All right, so are we missing anything?
Is there anything left on here? Like licensing and warrants or anything? Because those I think have to go away because they're too. All the things above summary of code changes then should go away.
Above summary of code changes. Where are you seeing that?
Well, go down because I was really confused because there was something that said revisions to tree and shrub code and Title 16. I'm abbreviating that. It's and it starts at what we identified as key issues for code.
Yeah, we got that covered here. So I changed that to this. Note that related changes may be necessary in.
Oh, no, I understand that, but there's a whole list of things. It says add purpose to clarify importance. You've done that. Establish an authority section. You've done that.
Yep.
Add, modify it. You've done that. Number 5 can go away. 6, you've done that.
Well, 5, we have, when you say 5, I don't know if you mean this 5.
Well, it's
or you
number
mean
5
this 5.
under summary of code changes.
So where is summary of code changes? Somewhere
I
else?
don't know. I think it's at the very beginning.
Oh, summary of code changes is the list that I have been working on.
Okay, well then I think that's fine. But all this stuff above that, because we've already taken care
I
of
see what you
life.
mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she's got her own copy of this. I'll just turn this into just our recommendations. So we've already addressed this. There's really nothing that needs to change there, right? Code officer or code manager Lewis, you guys, do you need anything addressed regarding your access to inspections?
No, because that's already governed by the Constitution.
That's what I figured. Okay, Member Johnson.
It might be redundant, but I think just like a good essay, you can say it and then elaborate. Like you know? That top section, I think should stay in there.
Even this, like, just to say that we've addressed these things, but determined no change necessary or something like that.
Or, yeah, just things to keep in mind, you know, like, I think it just kind of gives.
Well, it's not in there. I wouldn't even put it in because it's not an issue.
Right. Well, let's change what this is.
Yeah, there you go. Like just. And can we ask Maureen, are we allowed to just submit everything, like have Julie or Carson write a letter that, and then does that get approved by all of us? Does it have to happen at a meeting? And can we submit everything kind of with it?
I would, I mean, if I was chair, that's what I would suggest, is like one of us organize a whole email with appropriate attachments and introduction, and then share it with the whole committee and see if anyone has any final input before we submit it.
Well, and
Go ahead, Maureen.
the other thing that you can do is approve what you've done this evening. Okay, somebody can make a motion, say we approve, you know, this whole list of stuff. And in the motion, you can put that you're going to forward it to the chairperson of your committee for her to submit to city council. Then she could just submit it with a memo.
It's supposed to go through our liaison. Our city council liaison is supposed to take it to council.
And member Dickerson is absolutely correct. So the memo would go to council member Russell,
Okay.
but that should come from the chair of this committee.
Okay. All right. Well, I will clean this up and organize, but I mean, I still, just as a member of the committee, I think, you know, since we've all put work into this, I think it would be nice to see the whole thing together so we can all see it before it's officially submitted to Councilmember Russell. Code Manager Lewis.
I just wanted to recommend, based off of past processes, that you all clean up, take a look, approve what you want to do, send your memo forward to your liaison, who would address it to city manager to put on the agenda. And then you, representatives from all of your group, would come in during a study session to present how you came to that agreement. And is that correct, Councilmember Russell? Is that the way you understand that?
That is the way that I understand it. I mean, I can, and I can actually do it pretty simple, is just to make sure that it gets put on the agenda. I mean, that is my understanding. I mean, I don't know if this is my suggestion, Vice Chair Green, is that you go ahead and get it all cleaned up and everything, and then even have the committee look at it for the next meeting, and then just make the motion then and vote on it. I don't know.
That's how I would do it too, but I get, Member Johnson, you're kind of wondering, do we want to let it take 2 months before we submit it, right?
And that's what I wanted to remind you all of, is that
Yeah.
your next meeting is in August.
We
Member
can,
Time
Dickerson?
sensitive.
yeah, we can have a special meeting. We've done that before. I think we can have do it in a week or 2 weeks, whenever, you know, you've got it circulated around and we're ready to approve it. We have I'm pretty sure even without the chair, we have a quorum.
Oh,
And-
you mean
and
Just
can-
to finalize this, you know, approve everything, unless you can finish it right now.
we don't have time to finish what I'm picturing with a letter and everything else.
And please be aware that I'll be gone from June or July 2nd to July 10th.
It's only the
Okay.
16th. We've got 2 weeks. We can
But,
hold
and
it real
here,
quick.
but here's the deal, I have to post an agenda. If you guys are gonna have a meeting and discuss this, an agenda must be posted.
And
And
that's
you've
2 days
all
before?
requested, and that well, it's actually only 24 hours before a meeting, but per your instructions, I have to have this information out to you 3 days, at least 3 business days before the meeting.
Okay. Well, does anyone remember the days Chair Bowden said she was unavailable? I guess she said she had company during July.
The
I just-
last 2 weeks of July, she'll have company.
I was suggesting the last 2 weeks of June. How close are we to finishing this?
I mean, I could finish it in an hour. Councilmember Russell?
I actually think that you probably could, if you all here tonight could decide on a date that you could meet for just a quick Zoom meeting before Maureen leaves. It could be posted. Is this correct, Maureen? You could post it and 3 days later they could meet via Zoom and just vote on it, and it wouldn't be necessarily a full meeting.
The actual statute says that the agenda has to be posted 24 hours before a meeting, but this committee has directed that they want everything 3 days before a meeting. So, I mean, it can be done. That's not a problem at all. You guys decide what you want to do, but it'll be 3 days after or 3 days before whatever day you decide. I have to post an agenda.
I understand. Is there, could we have a quorum? I don't know if everyone's able to know their schedule right now. If we could bust this out, we've got 3 minutes left till 8. Is there any chance all the members of the committee just to like review a final on this and say, yeah, go ahead and send it, could meet on the 23rd or the 24th?
Today is Wednesday.
The 23rd is Wednesday. The 24th is Thursday.
I'm good on either day, Wednesday or Thursday. Which
And
means that she could,
We wouldn't need Councilmember Russell or Code Manager Lewis on that. It'll just be us to review our final email. Member Watson, are you there? Do either of those days work for you? It would be a quick meeting, probably 20 minutes.
Yeah, I'm good on it. Either day is fine.
Okay. Member Strom,
The 24th.
you could
The
do the
Thursday is
24th.
that-
Okay. Member Johnson? Still checking.
I can do either one. I just called Chair Bowden to see if she might be available for one of those. Is that
Okay.
allowed? Can I do that?
Yes, you can.
Okay, thank you. I'm just gonna check with her really quick. Either one's
Yeah,
fine with
great.
me.
So we'll make it the 24th because that's the only one that worked for everyone.
And then do you guys want it at 6 p.m.?
Yeah,
And it's only to finalize this issue, is that correct?
right. So we'll have this in the packet. So all we have to do is meet, have a motion to approve it, and then Chair Bowden will have it to send.
So, Member Green,
Yes.
you'll be sending this finalized version to the chair.
Yep.
Okay, so then she can send it to me. to
Yep.
Include in the packet. Okay, great.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you
I'll
so-
finish that this week. Do you have Chair Bowden on the line?
Okay, great. Bye-bye. Okay, she cannot be available for that. However, I just kind of quickly filled her in on what a great job you guys are doing and how this will be submitted for her to look at prior to that meeting, of course, as it will to all of us. And she said that sounds wonderful.
Right. So she'll have a chance for buy-in anyway. Okay.
Yeah,
so-
yeah. So it's
All right,
all
so
thumbs
so
up.
I move that we meet at 6 p.m. on June 24th for a quick approval of our tree shrub code.
Vice Chair Green,
Yes.
As acting chairperson, you do not have to make a motion. You can just direct that this committee will meet.
Okay. All right. We'll meet on 24th at 6 p.m. to review our content to submit on behalf of our committee for tree shrub code to Councilmember Russell to share with City Council. And let's see, let me get to our agenda real quick. So that's our unfinished business as far as we got. We wrapped that up. We'll everything else will move forward to future meetings. Council or committee member choice. Does anyone have anything? Member Dickerson, your hand is raised.
Oh, sorry, I thought we were I forgot to take it off.
Did any committee members have anything? I'll just share. I wanted to officially thank the city and city council for the volunteer appreciation event. I did attend and had fun on the water slides. It was really hot, so it was perfect. And that was nice. Thank you. And Code Manager Lewis, did you have some?
I just wanted everyone to mark their calendars that August 28th, the city of Inglewood is hosting an open house here at the police department.
Oh, cool.
With multiple different functions to be released. We're even talking about a police and fire softball game, as well as having sheltering staff here to do an adoption day, and then provide an open house where we'll be present to show everyone. That'll be a Saturday from, I think, 10 to 2. So mark your calendar so you have plenty of time to attend.
What's the date on that again?
August 28th.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything? Okay, go ahead.
I just want to thank Member Dickerson for all of her research. And I also want to thank you for having a brain that can condense it all. And if you need any assistance streamlining that in between now and the next meeting, I'm available to help.
Cool. Thanks, Member Johnson. And yeah, definitely. Thank you very much, Member Dickerson, for all your work on this. All right, let's adjourn. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.